start recording now. All right, so before we get started with today's Tutor Assessor Connections, I've got a couple of things I'd like to share with you. Of course, today is the start of Young STEM Leader Week, which is really exciting. It's an online event, social media campaign to get Young STEM Leader kick-started in centres across the country. Each day has a different theme, so today is about Discover, tomorrow is Create, Wednesday is Inspire, Thursday is Lead, and then on Friday we're celebrating everything to do with Young STEM Leader. So we encourage you to get involved on Twitter. We've got daily challenges, and please share what your Young STEM Leaders are getting up to, and hopefully that will help to give you a bit more inspiration as to what to do this week. If you are a tutor assessor and you're here with us today, we still have the job opening for RTAV, which is Associate Regional Trainer and Verifier, and that's open to existing tutor assessors, and we're looking to hire TAs from across the country to support us in that role. And I'm going to ask Graham again if you could post that in the chat box. Perhaps people can have a look at that. Cheers. All right, so we're going to be using idea boards for this session, where you'll be able to post questions and comments. Some of you have done that already, which is great. I've just popped the link again in the chat. So we've got kind of 3 topics that that we're going to use kind of to guide our questions later on after we've heard from our speakers, and thinking about ways that STEM ambassadors can support the delivery of Young STEM Leader. So please pop your questions, thoughts and feelings on there as well. And that's Graham just posted the RTAV job link in the chat box too. Okay, so today's session, first of all, we're going to hear from Kerry Haynes, who is the lead for STEM Ambassador East at CERC. That's one of Scotland's 3 STEM Ambassador hubs. And she's going to introduce the STEM Ambassador programme if you're not familiar with it, and tell you how you can engage. We're then going to hear from Angela Newman, from Farrens, who is a STEM Ambassador and who's going to share some of the work that she's done with schools. And we'll then hear from 2 tutor assessors, Paul Tyler from Kirkhill Primary School and Louise McGinley from Dalmarnock, not Darlmarnock as is written on the slides, that's a typo, Dalmarnock Primary School in Glasgow. After that, we'll take a question and answer from some of our panelists. So you can either post that on idea boards or post it in the chat, and I'll ask those to our panelists afterwards. And lastly, we'll hear from our evaluation team at the University of Stirling with some exciting opportunities that are coming up for young STEM leaders. So I'm going to stop talking now and hand over to our first speaker, who is Kerry Haynes from STEM Ambassador East at CERC. So over to you, Kerry.
Great, thank you very much. I will share my screen with everyone. Okay, and Jamie, just want to confirm you can see my slides?
All good.
Perfect. So as Jamie said, I'm Kerry Haynes. I'm the lead for the East of Scotland STEM Ambassador Hub. I'm here talking on behalf of the 3 Scottish hubs. So we have the STEM Ambassador Hub in the north, that's run out of Aberdeen Science Centre, which covers the Highlands and Islands, also Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire. The West STEM Ambassador Hub, which is based Science Connects at Glasgow University. They cover everything on the West Coast. And the East STEM Ambassador Hub, we're based at CERC in Dunfermline. I can specifically list my local authorities, but we cover Perth and Kinross, Forth Valley, down the East Coast to the borders. I'll share these slides with the YSL team as well, so you'll have the contact details in there. But here are the contact email addresses if you specifically want to get in touch with any of your contacts. So what is this Ambassador Programme? Fundamentally, it is made up of volunteers. We have over 5,000 volunteers from across Scotland. They come from a wide range of different backgrounds. It includes everyone from students and apprentices right through to people who have maybe retired and had a really full STEM career and want to continue giving back. They're all different sectors and industries, some that maybe you hadn't even considered as being part of STEM. So there really is a broad selection of STEM ambassadors available to support you. All our STEM ambassadors complete an online induction and they all become members of the PVG scheme. So it means that, you know, with utter confidence that if you have a STEM ambassador working with you, that they have received training on things like safeguarding, as well as how to work with young people, and they've also completed the PVG scheme. So all STEM ambassadors complete activities. They're supported by an online database. as a teacher or a tutor assessor, you have access to this online database, and it's how you tap into the STEM Ambassador program. So you can advertise opportunities. So you could say, I'm a tutor assessor. I have a group of young STEM leaders who would like some advice on doing risk assessments and health and safety. And STEM ambassadors can see that and volunteer and express interest to come work with you. STEM ambassadors can also post opportunities as offers. So I could be, I'm Kerry Haynes, I'm a STEM ambassador, and I would like to support a young STEM leader group in Perth. And I can put that up as an offer, and as a teacher, you could, or a tutor assessor, sorry, you could browse that and express interest in the ones you're interested in. And every STEM ambassador and every school are supported by a hub. So these are split by local authorities, and we're here to help you get access to the STEM Ambassador program. So we provide support, opportunities and training, and we want to make sure that STEM Ambassador program is accessible to everyone. So what does a STEM ambassador do? So activities come in all different shapes and sizes. They can be in person or online, which is obviously a big part of the delivery at the moment. They can work directly with young people in schools or youth groups, I should say, so young STEM leaders. Sometimes our STEM ambassadors prefer to work directly with teachers and group leaders, tutor assessors, rather than necessarily be directly in front of young people, and they can work with you directly. Some like to create resources and be really kind of behind the scenes, but still generating really amazing content and opportunities for young people. They can run things like STEM clubs or different types of clubs that might happen with your YSLs. They can deliver challenges, activities, or experiments. They can do real career workplace specific stuff that really links with developing your own workforce or with YSL 5 and YSL 3. They can create videos, which is great at the moment with the sort of remote and online delivery that's happening. When we're able to again. Some do site visits. They can deliver talks and presentations. I put work, but I think that is a typo, so apologies. And as you can see, like a lot of these can be done remotely using digital means. We did something during Maths Week where we got STEM ambassadors to create videos for young people, and young people were able to ask questions. And it was really nice to see the enthusiasm for that. I think at the moment when it's really challenging to have people face to face and your world becomes a bit narrow, it's been really nice to find ways to bring STEM ambassadors and young people together. So obviously STEM ambassadors there's really lots of opportunities for them to support the Young STEM Leader program. So STEM ambassadors can train YSLs to deliver a resource or activity that they're particularly familiar with. They can act as a subject matter expert. So for example, with health and safety, but also could be a particular topic. They can work together to deliver activities or projects. We currently have 6 YSL groups in the East, working with a number of STEM ambassadors to co-design a maths activity kit. So there's lots of different ways that they can work together to kind of create something unique and special. Young STEM leaders can work with an employer's STEM ambassador. So some of our STEM ambassadors sign up as individuals, but some will be part of a university group or an organization or an employer. So perhaps they could be doing something real subject or sector specific, for example, something with construction, and young STEM leaders can work with them on a particular sector topic. So what are the benefits? STEM ambassadors are a fantastic way to bring the curriculum to life. They add that really nice context to STEM subjects. They really help young people to see, that thing of why should I learn trigonometry? I'm never going to use it again. But, our STEM ambassadors can show all the really amazing ways that you can bring these sort of subjects to life. They're inspirational. It can help learners see that there's a future for them in STEM. As I said, the fact that we have a wide range of STEM ambassadors from apprentices right through, it shows that actually a STEM career is for everyone and doesn't necessarily mean going to university and following a quite traditional career route. They can help with you as an individual, your knowledge and confidence delivering STEM. A lot of teachers and youth group workers say they don't necessarily have the knowledge and the confidence when it comes to certain aspects of STEM. So STEM ambassadors can really help with that. As I mentioned, all our STEM ambassadors have training, they have a PVG, and when they're delivering STEM ambassador activities, they're covered by a STEM learning insurance. And our STEM ambassadors have actually had an opportunity to attend additional training to specifically support the Young STEM Leader programme. So we've run one session already and we plan to run another, and it's all about how STEM ambassadors can specifically work with you on the STEM Leader programme. And the 3 Scottish hubs also regularly run training events for teachers and group leaders. We did a networking event for Maths Week where we brought STEM ambassadors and teachers and group leaders together to talk about how they can deliver really exciting, engaging maths type activities. So how do you get started? You register on the STEM Learning website. What I'm going to do is do a very smooth transition to show you how this looks. So hopefully you can still see my screen. So you come onto the STEM Learning website and you click to register your account and you say your work in education, or if you're a youth or community group leader, and then you create your account. And here you can select your school. So if you are a school, you should have, they should all be listed in here, and you choose the ages and the subjects of particular interest to you. Subscribing to the newsletter is important because this is how you can get your regional information. So you're allocated to a regional hub and we send newsletters out, and it means you can get information that's happening within your region from your hub. So you can always unsubscribe later if you don't want to, but I really recommend subscribing. What I'm going to do is sign in and show you what it looks like for a teacher's account. So on here, you'll have a dashboard with any activities that you have coming up. Here is where if you wanted to request a STEM ambassador, you would advertise an activity. And you can see it's a really simple form to complete. Basically, it's the information you want them to know about your activity, the age range, whether it's a one-off. You can also say if it's online or in person, the topics it will cover, and some more details. You post that and that becomes advertised to STEM ambassadors. You can also browse offers. So as I mentioned, these are all the offers that STEM ambassadors have put up. So these are things they're available to deliver. And you can see there's a huge range of different ones there. So you can choose anything that's in energy and climate change talk. You can click into that, see more information, see the age range, who's it for, and you can express interest and message the STEM ambassador. The really great thing about the database is that you can communicate with STEM ambassadors through this if you want, or you can exchange emails and take it offline and communicate that way. It's entirely up to you. And we as a hub can support you to access this. When you register as a teacher or a group leader, you have access to a wide range of resources. These are all free for you to access in different age levels, and if you click in here, you can see all the different topics that are available. And what's really nice is they do special themed ones. So we've got some Halloween activities at the moment. If you want to do something spooky, a freaky hand science experiment, for example. And we actually run training for teachers. So we have one coming up soon. Sorry, I should also say group leaders. So if you wanted a bit more information about how to access the database and see how it works, we can signpost you to that as well, and you can come along and find out a bit more. I will stop sharing. That was a very much quick whistle-stop tour through the STEM Ambassador program, but I promised to keep it under 15 minutes, and hopefully I've achieved that. And I'll hand back over to Jamie.
Thanks so much, Kerry. That was, I'm sure for many tutor assessors, hopefully that was really useful in getting to kind of get to grips with the STEM Ambassador program. And if you have any more questions, you can ask Kerry later on, or you can contact your local STEM Ambassador hub, and perhaps Kerry can post a link in the chat about how to do that. Okay, so our next speaker, thanks so much for joining us today, is Angela Newman from Farron's Construction. Angela is a STEM Ambassador, and hopefully will be sharing a bit about her experience of working with schools.
Hello, as Jamie was saying, my name's Angela. I've been working with Farron's Construction in various points throughout Scotland for the last couple of years. When I first started, I was looking for a way to engage with schools to kind of promote engineering skills. So I've been doing that for just over 2 years just now, so mainly in primary schools. So I work across all the Scottish hubs because it depends on where my project's based, where I'm engaging at that particular time. So yep, so basically I work in the civil engineering industry, but my background is in computing. So I try and do activities that kind of engage children in both those things. So there's a few slides that I've got just to kind of give you a flavour of the kind of activities that I've been delivering up until now. Hopefully this will work. So yeah, the first one that I'm going to talk about is an activity I did last year for Maths Week Scotland. So this was a robot programming activity, kind of suitable for primary 3 and 4, and it kind of lists the skills there that you're trying to encourage there. So basically, we got the children to go in pairs and to take in, one gave instructions and the other one followed the instructions. And it was to get to a certain location within the gym hall. So after they had done that, they programmed the robot that you'll see there. So the end goal was to get it to go through there, and they had to use the various directional skills that they had learned. So it kind of shows the kind of coordination, a different thing about shapes. They have to listen, work as a team, and there's a whole screed of skills that are involved in there, and they had that little worksheet that they did as well. So that worked quite well. I've also done some connects work, so it teaches children about various types of triangles and why we use them in bridge building. Uses planning techniques, teamwork, and encourages engineering skills. So basically, I talked a bit about shapes and talked about civil engineering and where do you see those shapes, and then allowed them to build a structure of their choice, kind of utilising what they had learned. So that's for a slightly older, for primary 5+. You can always adapt these to suit the age group and make them a bit more complex with the learning. So another one for primary 5+, was a fairly easy one to do. So basically building a bridge from a cutout sheet. So they were allowed to cut the things out and join it together. And again, paying focus on the different shapes and how you can make it stronger. And then we had them have a competition to see who's had the strongest bridge there by placing cubes on them. So that gives them an opportunity to plan what they're going to do, design it, and then test it to see how strong it is and if it does what it's meant to do. So another kind of activity that I did was I had a code club in one of the schools that I did. So it was a lunchtime club. So that's programming with Scratch, Python and HTML. So that's a slightly older group as well. And I run that as a lunchtime club, and that's not just a one-off activity, you just keep progressing, and that gets their programming skills up. So we also deliver careers talks and virtual site visits just now, and that's really all I had to say. I hope I've not went over my 5 minutes.
Thanks so much for that, Angela. That was a really great example of all the different types of activities that STEM ambassadors can offer. There are lots of STEM ambassadors who are keen to support Young STEM Leader, and what you mentioned about your code club would be like a kind of great example of how STEM ambassadors could support Young STEM Leader on a kind of more regular basis as well. But we'll come on to that a bit later on. Right, and no further ado, Paul Tyler, it's over to you. Paul is a tutor assessor at Kirkhill, and I'm going to spotlight your video, and over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to share this. My previous school was Mearns Primary School, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about was stuff we did there. So we made a really big deal at Mayans of building partnerships, and STEM ambassadors was central to that, in terms of making initial connections with companies. And you can see some on here that were familiar, so things like Code Club that we've already heard about. STEM ambassadors, as I say, was absolutely central to that, and we had, over the course of 4 or 5 years, we had 15, 20, 25 STEM ambassadors coming into the school and supporting us with various activities. You can see a young engineer here, and a slightly older engineer here, who both came in and talked to children about their work, and inspired the children in different ways. We were working on developing STEM capital in our young people, and so getting role models into the school, getting in people who could complement teachers' knowledge, who could inspire children, who could talk about the various careers they had, was really important. And they supported a lot of events that we ran at the school, including our big STEM showcases, and you can see a number of STEM ambassadors in the images in different places, talking about and doing hands-on activities for children and for parents. We found a couple of things with STEM ambassadors, and I know I've talked to a lot of STEM ambassadors about this. So the first thing is to be very clear about what you're wanting from them. And I think especially now when it's, we're doing more virtual stuff, it's really important when you fill in the form on the STEM learning website that you're really clear about what you're wanting them to do, what you're wanting your children to get out of. The more information that you can give the STEM ambassadors before they speak to your children, the better. So telling them about the ages of the children, telling them about possible topics the children have been doing. We've gathered questions before and actually emailed questions to STEM ambassadors before they've come on to speak. One of the other important things that we've discovered recently in this new virtual age of ours is it's always good to do a test call beforehand. We've been using Google Meet through Glow because we found that that's the best platform for both us at school and for STEM ambassadors. But a wee test call before you actually link them up works really well. And then the second thing is that they really appreciate the feedback afterwards. So you can give feedback, you're prompted to give feedback online through the STEM Learning website. But if you get some feedback from the children, it's a really good thing to email that and give them that. I think the big advantage of our current situation, if there is an advantage, and the fact that we're going virtual, is that we now have access to STEM ambassadors across the UK. So just recently during Maths Week Scotland, we had 2 STEM ambassadors came and spoke to children in the school. One was from Bristol and one was from Manchester. And this is fantastic. We're no longer restricted by STEM ambassadors who live, within a certain distance of the school. It also meant that we could actually get the STEM ambassador to speak to 4 classes at our school and 2 classes at another school all at the same time. And so you've got much more opportunity to use STEM ambassadors' time really well by getting them to engage as widely as possible. And also for them to, to speak to children in different schools at the same time. Just while we're talking, I've got about a minute left. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of other ways that we've got people in to talk about STEM. So one of our most successful ways was through parents and staff, and they're using their contacts from out with school, also contacting local businesses, local pharmacies, opticians, dentists, and getting people from there to come in and speak in schools has been really successful in the past. Some of the larger companies like BAE Systems, Scottish Water, Siemens, as well as being involved in the STEM Ambassadors program, they also have their own sort of internal STEM ambassador programs, and actually contacting these companies directly or through their websites, you can sort of get into them then. Skype a Scientist is another organization. So this is an international organization we used during Maths Week Scotland, and we had a a girl from the University of Tasmania talking about her work in Antarctica. Very similar to STEM ambassadors, but obviously on an international scale. And I'm a Scientist, Get Me Out of Here is another organization, free to sign up to, who can link you with scientists from around the world. And that's me just over my 5 minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing there and hand back to Jamie.
Thanks for that, Paul. And I think that's some really great advice about being specific in terms of kind of requesting your STEM ambassadors. I think I've heard that a lot from the hubs and from various people. And I think for tutor assessors, if your young STEM leaders have an idea of someone that they'd like to get them to kind of support them, get them involved in writing the request for the database, so you know exactly what they want and you can be matched with the best STEM ambassador. Okay, so we've got lots of speakers today, so I'm just going to go on to our next speaker, which is Louise McGinley. Good to see you, Louise.
Hello there.
Hiya. So over to you.
Hello everyone, my name's Louise and I work at Kilmarnock Primary School, which is a large school in the East End of Glasgow. Just kind of touching a wee bit on what Paul said, our main driver for STEM over the last few years was to build resilience and problem solving skills in our children, but also to embed STEM capital. A lot of our families are multi-generational unemployment families, so it's not so much that they don't know anyone that works in STEM, they maybe come from a family where nobody has worked for a long time. So it was about getting across that idea of you can go somewhere after school, you can get a job and you can do something that you really love and something that you're good at. We've used STEM ambassadors for the last 3 or 4 years. For a period I was doing STEM as a responsibility in the school. I also looked after STEM as a responsibility to develop it within the learning community. And during that time I was teaching science and technology. So I had used STEM ambassadors to support the class teaching across first and second level. So getting specific STEM ambassadors in to support individual lessons that we were doing. We also did a focus on, instead of investigating historical scientific figures, but looking at current scientific figures and people who work within those industries just now. So we did like a Meet the Scientist, that was in person, but also we did interview a scientist by email. And again, we just put ads for that on STEM ambassadors. And when people got in touch, we just gave all the information over to them. Over the years, we've also used it to support our engineering clubs. So we had a particular engineer who came every week for a year to support us for that. We have used it for our large scale science day events, which we've had in the school for the last 3 or 4 years, which coincide with British Science Week. So that was individual STEM ambassadors who would go along to classrooms to support our young people who are leading STEM, but also to support class teachers to deliver a STEM curriculum for that day. Last year, we had a large scale STEM day, which was part of the YSL pilot, where our young people organised and ran a whole school event. And that was supported by STEM ambassadors as well from the website. The 2 things that I would mention really about the STEM ambassadors that we found incredible has been Aileen's support. I know she's here tonight, but when there's been times when I've maybe put an ad on and we've not had any response, or we've found a website, we've needed some help with that, Aileen's been brilliant at supporting the school. And when we've maybe not had response for a particular event, she's been great at getting in touch and seeing if she could drum up some interest. I think when we first started using STEM ambassadors, it was maybe there was less people using it, but there was always loads of people that got in touch. But over time, it's got really popular and it's been so successful that it can be tricky to get somebody to take up your ad. So my second piece of advice is really to put on your ads with lots and lots of notice. And if it is a big thing coming up like British Science Week, then bear in mind that lots of schools will be looking for folk. So I would say put your ad on as early as you can. The big sort of benefit for us, because we've used STEM ambassadors for the last few years, is that the STEM ambassadors that we've used are then connections that we've made, and then I don't even go into STEM ambassadors, I just contact them directly for the next event. And we've had several that have came along to the school, 3 and 4 and 5 times to support lots of events. So that's been incredibly useful. And it's a great way to get to know different organisations within the community and beyond that can then work with us in partnership in different ways. So when you do have folk coming into your schools, try and build that relationship and see what they can do in the future to help us out. I know I'm well under my 5 minutes, Jamie, but it's been a whirlwind through Kilmarnock, I'm afraid.
That was great. So I don't mind that you're going under time because we've got lots to get through today, but that's really wonderful. And for those who haven't heard from Louise before, the first ever Young STEM Leaders came from Darmarnock Primary School, so it's always nice
Yay!
to it's always nice to hear from you guys and hear what you're up to. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on in the year coming. But that's some really good advice from Louise as well about kind of building relationships with STEM ambassadors and the kind of best tips for requesting STEM ambassadors in advance and things like that. But so, I mean, the next part of our session, I'm going to open the floor to questions. So if anyone has any questions for any of our speakers, you can either pop them on the idea boards or on the chat box, and I will pick on a speaker to answer it. But the first question, I just want to ask Kerry again, if you could just kind of reiterate. So we talked a bit about like the best types of requests from schools and how to make sure that you get matched with the best STEM ambassadors. So what would your kind of key tips for that be?
I think be really clear about what you're looking for. So if you don't be scared to ask for things. So if you want someone specifically to come in and talk about engineering, ask for that, rather than saying you just want someone to come in and talk. The more clear you can be, the more likely you are to get STEM ambassadors to do that. And it also means that we can help, if we know that you're looking for an engineer, for example, we can be really specific in how we help you. If you're not sure what you want, or you want some advice, get in touch with the hub. So we are absolutely here to help you access this program. So if you're not sure or you want some advice, let us know. I have a teacher handbook, which again, I will circulate through the Young STEM Leader team, which gives some tips on how to do really engaging activities. So be really clear what you want, be really clear who it's for. If it's for the Young STEM Leader program, say that. A lot of STEM ambassadors have done the training and are actually actively looking to work with some Young STEM Leader groups.
Great, thanks, Kerry. That's really good. So we had a couple of on the idea boards. We had a couple of people commenting about right now the challenges of using face-to-face versus virtual kind of methods to deliver. I wonder if Paul or Louise, you could talk about, are you using any kind of face-to-face visitors now, or is everything online?
Yeah, we are all online just now. We're not allowed visitors into the school at all. We're doing bikeability at the moment, and the bikeability team aren't even allowed into the school. They have to wait out in the playground. So everything's virtual. So we started off in East Renfrewshire using Microsoft Teams because that's what we had access to. We found that the big challenge was that if we sent an invitation, people from out with East Renfrewshire couldn't access that. So what we had to do is get the people who we wanted to speak to us to send us the invitation. We've now got access to Google Meet, which is a much smoother platform, we find. And what we found with Google Meet is we can then send the invitations, and we found that to be much more successful. Always do a test call first. Would be my advice, but so far, touch wood, we've not had any issues with the 5 or 6 visitors that we've had into the school already this year.
That's great, Paul. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just having a wee look through our other questions. I'm not sure if we have any direct questions on the idea boards at the moment, but did anyone have any more questions for any of our speakers? You can either pop them in the chat or you can unmute your microphone. None at the moment. Okay, there's still time, so you can ask more questions at the end, and please do. That's why we have our speakers here today. But I'm delighted to have another speaker join us today. And Claire, I hope you are there, Claire Ramjan. Claire is from the University of Stirling, who have been working with us over the past year now to conduct a large-scale evaluation of the Young STEM Leader Programme. So I'm going to hand over to Claire now. I'm going to spotlight your video, if you don't mind. And over to you, Claire.
Hiya. Yeah, thank you for having me. As Jamie has said, I'm part of the team of researchers at the University of Stirling who is evaluating the Young STEM Leader project programme as it moves from its pilot phase into the kind of the full release of the programme. We've just finished evaluating the pilot phase, and it's been such an absolute joy to listen to the young people speaking about the pride and the excitement and the different activities that they've been undertaking. What we want to do as we move forward, however, is get more young people's voices, and it's obviously incredibly challenging to do that at the moment. I'm going to share my screen just now because we've got a little leaflet, a wee flyer that's going to that we're going to kind of put out amongst the various different communication channels that you guys have, to share an opportunity to get involved with the research kind of side of things in this. Now, this might be of interest to maybe one or two pupils from each of the schools. It wouldn't be something that absolutely everybody could do. They would have to be other activities going on for them to evaluate, which sounds like an obvious thing to say, but just to kind of put that in context. So the opportunity is for young people in each of the settings, whether that be schools, communities, both primaries and secondaries, to conduct their own research project as part of the Young STEM Leader experience. They would be planning, delivering, collecting and analysing data about the Young STEM Leader programme that's been happening within their school setting, within their community setting, within their cluster groups, however that's been delivered. We would be there to support them the whole way through. We would provide training in lots of different research methods, including the survey, but also thinking about hosting interviews, discussions, maybe arts-based or visual approaches to research. And we would be there to provide support in terms of ethics and online support all the way through. So they wouldn't be doing this themselves, and the teachers and the tutor assessors wouldn't be themselves on it either. We would be very much part of that. They would get a lovely experience of conducting a research project, fulfilling the Young STEM Leader activity, but also giving them really unique and interesting skills that could take them in a different direction for their STEM future. Communication skills, thinking about planning, project delivery, talking to younger people, talking to older people, a whole host of different skills that they could experience from that. We would want to get access to their data, which is the kind of important part of that. So we would be expecting those Young STEM Leaders to provide us with a summary of their research findings, and also then to have a chat with us about how they have found that research experience, where the problems, where the challenges, and what things that they maybe found surprising throughout that whole process. It might be written, could be a series of interviews, it could be a poster, it could be a big presentation to the school or to the community group. A whole, there's lots of flexibility in ways that we could do that. But the really important thing for us is that the young people who are involved in the Young STEM Leader programme are able to really engage with those participants within their setting and really find out what's working, what's not, what are they learning, what are they not learning, what are they loving, and what are they not loving quite so much about the whole thing. And that really gives us a better sense of the reality of the programme for those young people that are involved. Or any comments or any thoughts on how this could be done in your particular setting, then we'd be delighted to talk a bit more about it. So that's all I have to say, so thank you very much, and like I say, if there's any questions or anything at all, then just either shout now or get in touch afterwards.
Thanks so much, Claire, for that and for talking us through the opportunity. I think it's a really excellent opportunity for young people to engage with this wonderful research project, but also, as Claire mentioned, by participating in this research, this would fulfill the activities, events or interactions. So if they're doing the formal level, that would certainly cover their 4 hours of activities, events or interactions, and it would by far exceed the requirements for the non-formal levels as well. So if you have young people who are interested in research, they may be interested in doing something like that as in the future. It'd be a nice opportunity, kind of CV building and things like that as well. And Claire, can you just comment, so you said you wanted kind of 1 or 2 people from every centre. Is there an age limit on this, or can it be any young person?
Absolutely not. No. When we talk about kind of research projects, you think of kind of advanced hire and kind of those pupils that are going to take that forward. But I think that we could really do one of the groups that we spoke to in the evaluation this year were primary sixes, and they had such exciting things to say and such a lovely way of presenting things. And I would absolutely have worked, with them on an evaluation project, and I think they would have brought some really wonderful findings. So no, I think it can be primary, community settings and secondaries, and any age group within those. We would be there to support them all the way through, and obviously the complexity would be different for the different groups, but it would be very much led by our questions and their approach, and very much a kind of team perspective on it.
Sure. Thanks. Graham, you've just popped up on my screen. Did you want to add a comment there, or am I just seeing you for a random reason?
No, just for a random reason. Just just smiling away at this brilliant input, Jamie. And thanks, Claire. That's an amazing offer. And thanks to everyone that spoke so far as well.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions for Claire specifically about the research opportunity for young STEM leaders? I'm sure we'll kind of circulate that beyond this as well. But if anyone has any questions, then speak now.
The next thing to do is.
I can hear someone.
Oh, sorry, I was talking to myself.
Oh, okay. I'm going to mute you again. Okay, thanks very much, Claire, for that for that and for coming along today. So let me just share my screen again. So we've got some time now, just before we kind of close up today's session, for some more questions for our panelists. So please, if anyone has any questions for our panelists, then speak now. I'm sure our panelists would be delighted to hear your questions or thoughts, and if there's anyone, if you want to post them on the idea boards, that's fine too. We had I'm just going to open the floor and wait and see if any more questions come in, but we had a point on the idea boards about providing support for STEM clubs specifically, especially with engineering type projects. And so Louise, you said that your STEM ambassadors kind of supported your STEM clubs and were building that relationship. Did you kind of give them specific kind of topics or lessons to do, or did you let the STEM ambassadors provide stuff for themselves?
For our engineering club that year, it was through the YESC project that they run annually, and then they do the showcase at the Science Centre in sort of May, June time. So it was a very specific engineering project that they were doing. And at that point, it was an engineering project about water and pumps and the transfer of water. So when we put our ad together for the STEM Ambassador website, we were very specific about what the project was, and we put the information on about what the actual project was going to be. And then it was a water engineer who got in touch with us, and he was a very experienced STEM ambassador who'd worked with lots of clubs over time. So when he came along to the school, he was actually my very first STEM ambassador that I used. He was so experienced and so good at what he did and with the kids that he actually took the lead and planned every week. So it was a lunch club, and he used to just come from his work and have lunch with us and work with the kids. And then as the kind of deadline got closer, he used to come after school as well and help. But he could plan it all out and knew exactly what they needed to do. And to be honest, I was really just there supervising because he was so good. And that's the kind of calibre of people that are on the STEM Ambassador website, because they're so well trained and they're so experienced at their jobs, and they care passionately about developing STEM skills within young people. So they're amazing, absolutely amazing.
Great, that's such a fantastic answer. Cheers.
And Jamie, can I just to echo like Louise's point there, the questions that we got back from schools for Maths Week, the STEM ambassadors were genuinely so pleased and excited to get the variety of questions, and they were just fantastic. And I think now more than ever, to be able to have this sort of input is just fantastic. So to have the STEM ambassadors supporting young STEM leader groups, they can be that, subject matter expert, or they can be that guest speaker that comes along to something your YSLs are already delivering and just be an added extra. But they really are really looking forward and finding opportunities to volunteer now more than ever. So
sure, thanks, Kerry. Aileen Hamilton has sent me a message, and Aileen, I'm going to put you on the spot now and ask you to ask your question to the floor, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. We're aware, certainly in the secondaries, that careers events are looming. From January to March is the peak time for careers events. And we are just kind of deciding what's the best way for STEM ambassadors to offer their support for these. And it's just to throw it over to the teachers to see if they would like to have pre-recorded videos that the ambassadors make and then they can slot into the events, or would they prefer live chats with ambassadors over Google Meets, etc. We're just trying to frame our support for the next coming months, so it'd be useful to hear, even just put ideas in the chat of what teachers would prefer.
Yes, that's really great, Aileen. So perhaps now, if you are a teacher or you work in a youth or community setting with young people, post in the chat about what would you prefer. Would you prefer pre-recorded, or would you prefer live sessions as well? And we've collected some of this information on the idea boards, Aileen, which might give you a bit of an idea as well. We can talk about that later on. Fantastic. So please post in the chat whether you prefer it live or pre-recorded stuff. And we'll now move on to the last section, which is feedback. So I'm just going to launch a quick poll on your screen now. So you should now be able to answer that on your screen before we finish up. All right, so thanks to those who are still answering the poll questions. Your feedback is really useful for us. And we do hope that you kind of continue to engage with these events going forward and have found this one beneficial. So the next Tutor Assessor Connections is on the 1st of December from 4 till 5 p.m. That's going to be particularly focused on delivering the formal levels of Young STEM Leader. So that's YSL 5 and 6 and the soon to be released YSL 4. So if you think you can contribute the 5-minute slot to that, then please get in touch with myself or Graham, and we'd love to have as much input from different tutor assessors in different parts of the country as possible. Otherwise, that's it from us. I just want to extend my thank you to all of our speakers today for coming along and sharing your experiences. Big virtual round of applause to you guys. It's always so useful to hear from tutor assessors and find out what you guys are getting up to without being too nosy. I do hope to see you again at the next Tutor Assessor Connections, and please engage with Young STEM Leader Week on Twitter. You can find us at Young STEM Leader or using the hashtag Young STEM Leader Week. There's lots more exciting content to be released in the days to come. That's it for me. Thank you very much and have a good evening.